Well, hello, how are you doing? This is Pastor David Anderson from David Anderson Ministries. And oh, what a joy it is for me to be a part of the Church United. I am so excited to be partnering with so many teachers and preachers and leaders who are all coming together, even in the midst of a time of a pandemic, in the midst of a time of struggle, to just be the church. And I believe that in this season, God is calling us to be the church, be the church. Well, I want to encourage you this day. I know that these times bring anxiety and fear, bring a lot of panic and uncertainty, a lot of unrest. We don't know what will happen from day to day. But I do want to encourage you this. We do know who's in control of tomorrow and who's in control of life at large. If I could just point your attention to the 27th number of Psalms. The English Standard Version reads these very encouraging scriptures. It says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" And then the last part of this wonderful passage says this: "I believe that I shall look upon the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Here it is. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Let your heart take courage, and then wait for the Lord. I just want to encourage you. Listen, honestly, even though we are afraid, we have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear. When I thought about how do we thrive, how do we keep going in this season, I couldn't help but think about my 7-year-old son, David Anderson Jr., DJ, we called him. We recently were trying to get him to try some new food. And he didn't want to try it. We finally got him to bite it. And immediately upon biting it, his face turned upside down, frowned, upset, said, "Daddy, this is nasty. I need to spit this out." And we said, "Son, just hold on. It's going to keep on chewing." And he said, "No, Daddy, I've got to spit this out." I said, son, keep on chewing. I promise it's going to get it, frown on his face, ready to spit it out. And it seemed like maybe on the 7th chew, something happened. His face started smiling. He said, "This food is good." See, we were excited for him because what we knew was that even though the start of it may have been a little bitter, a little sour, may not have tasted, the texture may have been a little odd compared to what he was used to, we knew that if he kept on chewing, that eventually what started off bitter would eventually turn into an explosiveness of good flavor. It was meant to do that, but the only way you could do that is you had to keep chewing, allow the saliva and the chewing to mix with the food to cause the explosion of the flavor or the flavor to come out. And so here's what I want to encourage you. How then do we make it in this season? Keep chewing. Keep chewing, even in dark times. Keep chewing, even in hard times. Keep chewing, even in uncertain times, because it's when you keep chewing that you will get to the goodness that God has for you. In other words, what are you saying? Keep living. Keep going, keep pressing. It may start off bitter today. It may look sour today. It may be unusual today. But if we keep on living in the midst, keep on thriving, keep on trying, and keep on going and never give up, God promises us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy will come. God promises us that, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Listen, we understand that trouble don't last always. But in order to experience the blessing and the miracle and the power of God, we have to keep going even in the midst of uncertain times. And so we have to be fearless. We have to keep pressing. And I know that's hard when we keep seeing news articles and our phones keep sending alerts and the news keeps sending these things of fear that keep happening of reality all around us. But yet I want to encourage you, you can still trust God. Even in the midst of uncertain times, Keep on chewing. When I thought about that, when I looked at this Psalms 27, I realized that we got to recognize who God is. We got to recognize who God is because, listen, he starts off by saying this. He says, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? He immediately recognizes who God is. Here's the reality. If we're going to make it, if we're going to keep on chewing, if we're going to stand in power, if we're going to stand through this season and make it through the uncertainty, you got to recognize who God is. Listen, that simplistically means that we ought to acknowledge him in every way and every walk in our lives, every day, every decision that we're making, even when it seems uncertain. I'm going to lift his name up instead of lifting my issues up. That's why he does that. He doesn't start with a list of issues. He starts with the one who can solve it. In this season, let's focus on the one who is still in control, who is still able to do exceeding abundantly more than we can ask or think. Recognize who God is. But then second of all, here's what we ought to do. We got to rely on his provisions. How do we make it in this season? How do we keep on chewing? How do we keep on living? Listen what the psalmist says here in Psalms 27. He says, listen, if I'm going to make it, if I'm going to keep pressing, if I'm going to keep living, listen, I've got to rely on the power of God. He says, for in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In other words, listen, when he was talking in this particular context, he was really speaking of the tent. The tabernacle had not yet been built. Here's something interesting. In that time, what we called the ancient Near Eastern time, here's one thing. A tent owner was responsible for anybody who visited their tent. And so they took care of the person who visited the tent. And so what the psalmist is saying, listen, I'm going to the tent of God. And when I go to the tent of the Lord, it's the Lord that's going to take care of me. Here's the reality for you and I. Listen, when we are thriving, when we are pressing, when we are trying to get through this storm, we got to understand that we're going to the tent of the Lord, and it's by his provisions that he's going to take care of us even in the midst of the storm. I'm relying on God even when the stock market is going crazy. I'm going to rely on God even when it seems like all chaos is around. I'm going to rely on God when jobs are closing down and shutting down and laying off. I'm going to rely on the provisions of God even in this season.